For the last time in 2025, welcome back to the Exam Room Nutrition Podcast, your guide to giving better nutrition advice. I'm your host, Colleen Sloan. I'm a PA, dietitian, and I cannot believe that this is my final episode of the year. Where on earth has 2025 gone? Now, I get a little nostalgic this time of year, reflecting on everything that's happened and getting really excited for what's ahead. But if you told me last December that I would launch a CME course, speak at multiple conferences, and partner with several national brands, I would have never believed you. But what about you? What's one thing from this year that surprised you? Maybe in a good way or a bad way. Either way, send me a message on Instagram or LinkedIn at Exam Room Nutrition because I would love to hear how 2025 was for you. So for today's episode, I pulled together my favorite lessons, moments, and little gems from episodes and conversations throughout 2025. You're going to hear questions to open tough conversations, mindset shifts that can make your visits easier, and simple strategies that can help your patients follow through. So with that, let's get into my 2025 mashup. Number 1, it's not your job to make your patient change. It's your job to make the case for change, create an environment where they feel change is possible, and equip them with a next step that they feel confident doing. Now, this quote came from Stacy Belcher in episode 132, and it reframes the invisible burden all of us carry as clinicians, feeling like it's our job to make the patient change. But this is a permission slip that Stacy gave us in that episode, and I'm giving it to you now. We are not responsible for forcing someone to change. So this is going to take the pressure off you and will place the responsibility where it belongs, shared between clinician and patient. Write this on a sticky note and put it somewhere you'll see often and use it as a reminder when you feel frustrated, burnt out, or just convinced that your patient doesn't care. Because I promise you, they do care. They just need a plan that fits their life, and you can help them explore how. And once you take that pressure off yourself to fix your patients, the next mindset shift becomes so much easier to step into. That leads me to number 2. Assume your patient wants to be successful, but something is getting in the way. This one came from my conversation with Laura Collar in episode 67. Laura is the queen of behavior change, and when she told me this saying, it was a huge aha moment for me. Because if I'm honest, it's really easy for me to slide into judgment. Like, they don't care, they're not listening to me, they're not trying. But instead, this assumption keeps you anchored in curiosity and compassion. So instead of assuming they're just being resistant or difficult, we now assume, there must be a barrier preventing them from doing this change. So when a patient isn't meeting their goals, pause and assume they really do want to be successful. Then just ask them, what's the biggest barrier facing right now? Or why has this been hard for you this week? Asking a patient why something has been hard, I promise you, will open doors into their life you never knew about. And hearing their struggles in their day-to-day life outside of the exam room walls helps you know where to intervene. Let's move on to number 3. I love asking patients to share their nutrition journey so far. Patients carry years of lived experience into the room with them, whether it's successes, failures, beliefs, shame, cultural practices, trauma, and a whole lot of misinformation thanks to social media. So I love starting with their story because it honors their expertise with their own body and gives you a better understanding of how to help them. Asking the patient to share about their nutrition journey helps them feel seen, heard, and valued. And it prevents you from giving them unnecessary advice that maybe they've tried and didn't work in the past. For example, if you work in adult medicine and you find out your patient has been on the dieting merry-go-round, they've tried intermittent fasting, keto, and maybe medication in the past, you now can find out what worked, what stressed them out, and what they believe about food. And you can adjust your recommendations accordingly. So once you've heard their story, the wins, the struggles, what's worked and what hasn't, you can gently shift into the harder topics like diet, and wait. So tip number 4 is a question I love to ask, because if you've been around for any time, you know asking permission is a hill I will die on. I think it's so crucial. And I love this question from Dr. Duran in episode 134. Simply ask your patient, is it okay if we talk about how your weight might be affecting your health today? Now, it gives you a way to start the conversation with honesty and compassion, because there's always that tension between addressing obesity and honoring a patient exactly as they are. The health at every size movement on one side, and then weight-centric care is on the other. And most of us are trying to practice somewhere in the middle, balancing this tension. But this question and asking permission before discussing really, really sensitive topics opens the door without making your patient feel judged. Another way I like to frame this question is, are you comfortable if we talk about your weight over the last year? So once you've opened the door with permission, the next tool is going to help your patients shift their focus from the scale to the life they actually want to live. Tip number 5 is asking your patient, what would success look like for you? Now, if you've been around here a while, you know my friend Nina Crowley. She's a registered dietitian, was a guest on episode 68. I've been a guest on her podcast. She taught inside the obesity medicine nutrition course, and she is my go-to gal for all things body composition. She also recently reviewed a slide deck for me and gave me the honest feedback I really needed, even if it was a little painful. I wrote about that in this week's newsletter if you're on my email list. If not, you can sign up for the email list at examroomnutrition.com/sign up. But when Nina started talking about non-scale victories and asking patients to define their own success, I thought, man, this is so powerful. The question shifts the agenda from your definition of progress to your patients. It uncovers their values, their priorities, and what a win will look like in their world. And once you know that, your intervention becomes targeted and meaningful. So in pediatrics, maybe the parent's goal is to not have any fighting at the dinner table. Great, let's work on that. In adult medicine, maybe a patient says, I just want my joints to hurt less. So now your plan is mobility and energy, not necessarily achieving a goal weight. Now, after you hear what success looks like for your patient, the next step is to explore the why behind it. This is the feeling or identity that they're really chasing. And this next exercise is one of my favorites for helping patients get there. It's called the goal weight exercise. So have your patient write their goal weight at the top of a big piece of paper. Then have them list everything they think or want to gain from being that weight. As many things as possible. Try to fill up the paper. Then tear off the number on the top. This exercise comes from Jeannie Boyer. She's one of our instructors inside the Obesity Medicine Nutrition course, and she teaches this beautifully inside the course. And we also walked through it inside this Sneak Peek Week mini-series. I'll link down to it in the show notes if you wanted to hear this exercise explained in detail. Because people really don't want a number. They want confidence. They want energy. They want joy. They want to sleep better. They want to fit in an airplane seat. When we focus strictly on numbers, that creates pressure. But when they focus on values or a deep-seated goal, that can create direction. It's going to reframe the goal from weight to identity, which is far more motivating and far more sustainable. So if a patient says that they want to be back at their wedding weight, but on their list, it reveals that they want to feel strong and sexy for their spouse, that's what we hold on to. And once a patient gets clear on what they truly want, not the number, but the identity behind it, the next step is choosing one action that moves them in that direction. And that's where this next question comes in. So tip number 7 is, what's one change you'd feel confident doing this week? Confidence is one of the strongest predictors of behavior change. Big, lofty goals fail early, but small steps succeed early. And that early success builds momentum. I love to use this question at the end of the visit. Maybe you've talked about 2 or 3 things, but then have the patient choose the one thing that they would feel very confident in doing this week. You might even need to shrink it down a bit more because, again, early success will build momentum, and you have to have those quick wins for your patient to build confidence that they are capable of change. And lastly, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a tip that protects you as the clinician. Consider it my permission slip to you. Tip number 8, and this is for you. You do not have to give a yes or no answer just because a patient asked you a yes or no question. Now, I cannot be the only one who dreads those, "Oh, by the way," questions at the very end of the visit. This happens to me all the time. I'm wrapping up, all of their questions are answered, my chart is almost done, and suddenly they ask, "Oh, by the way, is this diet good? Do I need to cut out carbs? Do I need to have an electrolyte supplement? Should I drink protein shakes?" In that moment, it's so easy to feel cornered, like you owe them a quick, clean, yes or no answer. But those quick answers often lead to oversimplified advice, sometimes inaccurate advice, and it reinforces this idea that we're supposed to know everything about everything, and that's just not realistic. So instead of answering the patient right away, I take a breath and I actually answer their question with a question. I like to know, where did you hear that? Well, what makes you bring that up today? Can you tell me what you know about XYZ so far? This will give you context into why they're asking that question and who they heard it from. This is really important. Plus, if you don't feel confident answering it accurately, it is okay to say so. Patients deserve good care, not flippant answers that may be wrong. Part of being a strong clinician is knowing when to pause, refer to a colleague, and make sure the patient gets the right information, even if it doesn't come from you. I had to do this recently when an aunt who was in the exam room with my patient and the family asked me a fertility question. And I simply said, "You know what? That's a great question, but that is not my wheelhouse. But I can get you someone who does this every day and she will be able to help you." And she appreciated my honesty so much more than a half-baked answer I came up with on the spot. You are not supposed to know everything. That's why we practice in teams. And that's been a big goal of this podcast, is to connect clinicians with dietitians so that our patients can thrive. So thank you so much for carving out some time to learn about nutrition this year. And I'm really excited to say that's a wrap on 2025. I'll see you back here on January 14th with brand new episodes. I'm taking a much needed break from podcasting over the holiday season. But until then, let's stay connected on Instagram or LinkedIn. You can find me at Exam Room Nutrition. Well, my friend, happy holidays and Happy New Year.